Yeah. All right. Turn 1 scout here from Jesse. Both players keep their 7 once again. Field of the Dead. Float a green. Another scout past the turn. Will Jesse and Ian goes to 19 and finds a tapped Watery Grave.
I really hope his hands all land. That'd be dope.
Looks like Jesse's hand is Breeding Pool, Simic Growth Chamber. I think
there's a Tireless Tracker.
That was a Summoner's Pact and a 3rd Secure Tribe Scout.
3rd Secure Tribe Scout. That was that green creature.
Maybe it's a Tireless Tracker. That would make sense as well. So Creeping Tar Pit go from Ian.
Jesse end steps at Simic Growth Chamber. Oh, draws an Amulet.
Amulet of Vigor. Pretty good draw here. Not actually great currently. It's not going to be able to ramp him into a Primeval Titan any quicker this turn. I expect to see Tireless Tracker, land, activate Scout, land. So it looks like an attack for 1.
Message sent.
There's the tracker. Jesse. Here's that Tireless Tracker we talked about. Land for turn will make a clue.
Play an Amulet and pass. Oh, Force of Negation, the Amulet.
Of Negation. Exiling. Oh, Spell Snare. Why is there a Spell Snare in our deck? Oh, no.
Gross.
That's not what you want.
Absolutely.
That card does not have targets in this matchup.
Well, actually,
it does have Once Upon a Time now.
But I'm still off it.
Yeah, I agree. Regardless, it's getting exiled to a Force Negation, so I don't hate that.
Yeah, best use possible.
All right, looks like Field of Ruin here, likely taking out Field of the Dead. Although, Ian can get a reasonable read that, oh no, you don't want to activate this now, though, here, Ian. I don't think. You're definitely risking Jesse just putting a bounce land into play with this Secure Tribe Scout. I think you want to go ahead and pass the turn. Of course, Jesse does not have a bounce land, but if he did, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, it's such a blowout bouncing your lands when your opponent tries to kill them.
Yeah, it's super, super good. So it looks like Ian is activating Field of Ruin,
on
targeting something.
Or Field of the Dead?
We're not sure, but we'll see. All right, looks like it is Simic Growth Chamber. Jesse's going to get a clue from that interaction,
which is fantastic.
And then going to put a land into play. I do like that choice from Ian. I think that's a pretty correct read that Jesse doesn't have that many lands in his hand. He obviously only has exactly 1 more, because if he had more, then he wouldn't have attacked with his Secure Tribe Scout. He obviously has exactly 1. So I expect Jesse to put this Breeding Pool into play, take the 2 damage from the shock, and then go ahead and crack a clue on end step here.
All right.
Okay.
Putting in a Breeding Pool.
Tapped. Come on. Just take the 2 damage and crack a clue there.
Yeah.
You're playing against Grixis control. Like, your mana matters. Like, you want to take your 2 and use your clue there.
Oh, God. Message sent.
Okay, so...
He's got Teleri West.
Looks like an attack for a total of 6 after we crack a clue to put a counter on this Titan.
Teleri West.
Send it back to him.
Oh, Summoner's Pact, Teleri West Azusa is his hand now.
Did we just not play a land that turn? We just decided that we wanted to hold the Teleri West in our hand?
I guess. I
think you should just play it there. It draws a card. We want to cast Primeval Titan eventually.
So unbelievably off that line, but whatever.
Alright, looks like crack a clue, draw a card. Will Jesse... Oh, Jace the Mind Sculptor coming down from Ian. Gonna do a whole lot of not much.
Yeah, like, in fact, nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't look particularly relevant. He's getting beat down by these very anemic beats. Another Teleri West off the top will convince Jesse to play the first. And let's see what we want to be doing here now.
He could go Azusa land. He has Sunhome and second Teleri West.
Correct. Looks like he will start with the Azusa and the Sunhome, but decides to keep the Teleri West at home. I think I agree with this at this point. Now we're obviously killing the Jace, and 2 at Ian brings Ian to 10.
All right. These are quite anemic beats, and I love them.
Yeah, they're very anemic, these beats. So Jace down. Ian, of course, does have lands and a bunch of Cryptic Commands at this point, though, now. So he's managed to get to the point where he can meaningfully interact with the Primeval Titans on the axis that Jesse is playing them. But we still have to deal with all the threats on board right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is why
this
I like
attack
bringing
is
the
just going to be
Damnation.
huge. Yeah. Yeah, the Damnation would have been good here, but it feels like you're dead even if you tap out for a Damnation, because then Jesse just gets to play his stupid Primeval Titans, and that's pretty rough.
I just think this matchup's rough.
That's probably pretty accurate as well. So it looks like Jesse's going to start his turn with a clue.
I think Jesse's off playing Titan until his board's dealt with.
I tend to agree. There's no real reason to do anything special here.
Yeah.
Like, your opponent absolutely has to deal with Tireless Tracker, and as soon as they deal with Tireless Tracker,
And he
we could
even-
start considering
he
playing
can
these
even
Primeval
present lethal
Titans.
here with his attack of all his creatures.
Yeah. So it looks like we're going to go to combat, and I expect that Ian is going to be forced to Cryptic Command to stop these attacks. He will, in fact, do that.
Oh.
Ooh, Disdainful Stroke from the sideboard. And then an attack for... Oh, Force of Negation
He almost
will
forgot about
counter
it.
that.
Yeah, he started
Yeah,
picking these
otherwise,
cards.
Ian would be dead. So, of course, he does need to do this. And now... it looks like the modes on that Cryptic were bounce your tracker, tap your team.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
It makes him not dead next turn. Which is an
Yeah,
important place to be.
it is.
But this still means he gets to go tracker, land. Like tracker at least my forest for turn, maybe my Teleri West if I feel like it. Probably not. He's been on the record for wanting to keep one in his hand, so he's good. Like gets to play his tracker in his forest, make a clue, sack 2 clues, untap, and possibly present lethal again, depending on his draw.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay,
Looks
so
like he didn't do that.
looks like play a land, crack my clue, draw an Ancient Stirrings. Will Jesse look at the top 5 for him? Field of the Dead, Slayer Stronghold among them. Slayer Stronghold is the selection,
The
and
card is bananas.
right on over to Ian. We cannot activate the Slayer Stronghold unless I'm missing something, so I'm
I don't think you're missing anything.
pretty curious as to why we chose that instead of Field of the Dead here. When our opponent
we have a
said,
Field of Dead in play already, and we want lands with different names.
that makes sense. We actually have a Snow-Covered Forest, a Field of the Dead,
A Sunhome,
a Sunhome, a Teleri West, a Breeding Pool.
and
So we have Forest, Field of the Dead, Teleri West, Snow-Covered Forest, Sunhome, Breeding Pool. So we actually do only have 6 different lands.
yeah.
So I
and
suppose...
that Vesuva's copying a Field of Dead already.
yeah, the Vesuva is not going to be a separate name, obviously. Regardless, Ian looks like he's dead, so he's going to have to play as Jace and try and find some answers. 3 fresh cards off the top. Cryptic Command, Scalding Tarn, and Kolaghan's... Or was that a Cruel Ultimatum or a Kolaghan's Command?
It's a. I can't even tell. It's
That's
multicolored.
Kolaghan's Command, I believe. I would not be shocked if the Cruel Ultimatums were not in the deck for this
Yeah, that.
matchup anymore.
Well, target player sacks a creature when they only have one creature in play is pretty dope, but they will never only have just a Titan in play.
Well, a lot of these versions have cut Colony Garden for these Castle Garenbrigs nowadays, but Cruel Ultimatum is still likely to just tag a Secure Tribe Scout or whatever.
Or a zombie token.
Okay.
Okay, so
So, zombie tokens made off the
Very West
Slayer
transmuted.
Stronghold. Transmute Slayer Stronghold.
He's getting a bounce land here.
I'd just get Pact of Negation, right? Like, we have Field of the Dead active. We're going to attack our opponent for 5 next turn, and then 5 again. Right?
Yeah, and
That's
if
kind of
we-
just the plan.
Let's see. We don't have any red or white mana in play.
We do not.
Okay.
Mystic Sanctuary. Hello. Mystic Sanctuary enters battlefield untapped and is getting to get to put a instant or sorcery card on top of Ian's library. Let's see what he wants. Looks like it's going to be Cryptic Command. This Mystic Sanctuary Cryptic Command thing feels pretty insane.
Yeah. So now Ian gets to fog combat every turn.
Yes, for the rest of the game, at the price of never playing another land drop and really not doing anything else relevant. But, yeah, at least he can do it.
Yeah.
Of course, Jesse has a whole lot of other things, one of which being Pact of Negation,
Yeah. How's he supposed to?
another of which being Primeval Titan. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, Jesse has no way to deal indirect combat damage, assuming there's no walking list in his deck.
Correct.
which I don't think there is.
I do not believe there is a Walking Ballista in the 75.
Which hurts because that is like my favorite card in the 75.
I'm a big fan of the Walking Ballista out of this deck. It kind of always just kills your opponent, I've noticed.
Yeah,
When you have like
time.
a lot of mana, you're like, Walking Ballista, haste it, you'll take... Oh, yeah, you're dead.
Every time.
Yeah, oh, look at that. Which I'm sure is a similar experience to playing Hardened Scales.
Yeah, probably.
Turns out when you draw Walking Ballista in Modern, your opponent's probably just dead. It's like the Kenrith experience in Standard.
That card's insane.
All right, so it looks like Ian is going to fire off this cryptic command here at the start of combat.
And does Jesse pack
Oh,
it?
doesn't look like...
Oh,
it looks
actually
like
it's a creeping
he
tar
allowed
pit.
Jesse to attack, and Ian is just going to animate a creeping tar pit and trade with a zombie?
Man, the Azusa feels so much better to hit there.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. Looks like Colligan's command
Okay.
going to take out another zombie and have Jesse discard one card.
Man, I feel like shooting the Azusa there. I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty obvious the Azusa isn't doing too much right now. Jesse is not really going off with lands or anything like that. But still, I want to keep my creepy tar pit alive, I think. Like, I just feel like I need the mana if I'm Ian.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm going to need to deal with my opponent's board and interact with the threats he plays on the same turn cycle at some point in this game. And I need to draw cheap spells to help me do that, but most importantly, I need to have the land, like, you know, with 5 lands, I can't do that even with, like, a Disdainful Stroke or whatever, you know, like, I need to be able to, you know, prevent you from attacking, counter your Titan, like, or removal spell, counter your Titan, untap, like, play a Planeswalker and have another counter spell or something, like, when we're just sacrificing our lands, it just doesn't feel like that's the type of play that Ian's going to be able to realistically make in this game. And it looks like Ian agrees, and we are done here. And with that, Jesse will be taking the match 2-1. And, yeah, that ended up being a pretty sweet match. We saw a pretty wide spectrum there. We saw the raw power of Amulet in its explosiveness, the raw power of Amulet by grinding it out. And, you know,
And some Drowning
we didn't see any Cruel Ultimatum.
Yeah, that
Pretty bummed out by that.
Yeah.
So it looks like we are going to be cutting to a quick break here before our second round. So with that, I'd like to take the time to thank one of the sponsors for the stream for tonight. Huge shout out to Tabletop. Tabletop is a board game apparel clothing brand, and they make super awesome material, super awesome apparel, super awesome sweatshirts, t-shirts, all that type of thing for basically all things board game nerd culture related. So if you're into that type of thing, I've seen a lot of their merchandise in person. It's all really good. I really, really like it. Super soft, super comfortable, and huge thank you to them for sponsoring the stream. Without them, I can't be here, Dylan can't be here, we can't be here bringing this to you. So thank you so much to Tabletop for your support. And with that, we're going to leave you with some capacity, and we'll be back shortly for the next round.
The bottom fell out of the clouds today, and the rain came down like a mirror. One big sheet and it shattered on the ground. Now it's 7 years of bad luck all over this town. It's collection time on all of your debts, and you can't get by just talking. Your smile don't work, and your car don't start, and your doors ain't keeping you alone. No, not even if you lock 'em. No, not even if you lock 'em. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good. The sun tried shining on a lost boy's eyes. They reflected oh so pretty, but it's cold behind them golden shores, and the sweet light wasn't nothing more than their own damn wishing, 'cause they just don't listen. Now wish on your candles, pray to your God, cry for your mama, put $1 on the bar. It feels like breathing, but the only good feeling ain't a gamble is a sin. So I think I play it safe and get a gin. I'll take the devil for a spin. When you're tapped into that bit of rain, just about anything feels good. For some the morning brings another day, but all it does for me is shine an ugly light around in the room that I've been hiding in. Now I take the easy way, yeah, that gets harder every day, but I ain't here to fix myself. I'm just trying to blind these eyes from hell. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good.
Hello and welcome back for round number 2 here at the Monday Night Modern Paradise Games. We have Jesse versus Steven for round number 2. Jesse, of course, the winner of our last match on camera, and Steven, a familiar face around the shop. We had him on stream quite a bit last week, so should be no surprise. Since last week, he has taken the Jeskai Ascendancies, with which he despised, out of his deck, and is now on a much more streamlined, straight blue-black plan. Gives him a little bit better mana and a less consistent kill condition, although just a more fluid, overwhelming board state kill condition between Urza, Saheeli, and Sai. So, gonna have to take a look and see how that performs. But regardless, looks like both players taking their opening 7. Looks like a mulligan from Jesse, and Steven going to be keeping his hand. Steven's hand looks pretty good from a glance. I see some lands and some artifacts that make mana, and then other artifacts. Basically all you can ask for with this deck.
I also will be shocked if Steven doesn't win this. I'm pretty sure Amulet is not favored in this matchup. I'm pretty sure Paradoxical is faster, can kill better, like, beats through our 1 pack negation, like, doesn't lose, like, E's on 0's alright, but, like, there's only 1 or 2 of those in Jesse's deck. There's no Karns, because he's on Once Upon a Times. Like, I feel like Jesse's probably not even remotely favored.
Yes, Amulet Titan traditionally struggles with faster spell-based combo decks.
Oh, man.
And this is a pretty absurd start from Steven, so Jesse's going to need something pretty special. But Steven did take the actual combo out of his deck by removing Jeskai Ascendancy. So if Steven's plan is just to kind of toil around with a bunch of 1/1s and make them bigger, Jesse can actually brawl with that pretty effectively in the later game with cards like Field of the Dead making multiple zombies every turn with his Primeval Titans.
That's true.
Looks like Emery going to go ahead and recast. I'm not sure what that one is. The foiling makes it a little hard to see. Probably a Mishra's Bauble,
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
if I had to guess. But I am not certain. I'm sure our producer will let us know here momentarily. Not a super... Oh, it's a Wishclaw Talisman. Oh, boy.
All right.
Okay, well, that is that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
that's a pretty good one here. That
All
one's
right, yeah.
that one's gonna be finding, I expect, Paradoxical Outcome.
Yep.
Have you ever Paradoxical Outcome? Unfortunately, you can't Wishclaw Talisman for the Paradoxical Outcome and then pick the Wishclaw Talisman back up. However, if you have the Paradoxical Outcome to begin with, you can activate your Wishclaw Talisman and then Paradoxical Outcome in response, and then you do get to pick up your Wishclaw Talisman and then go Demonic Tutor afterwards.
For your other Paradoxical Outcome?
For whatever you want, really. And it looks like Steven's hand pretty anemic, really. He's got a land and 2 more mana rocks right now, but Wishclaw Talisman represents a lot of cards or mana
so many.
or power, even if it's going and finding an Urza. So we'll have to see how Jesse wants to deal with this. I need to remind you, he has 2 lands in play. Ooh,
Oh.
however, double amulet is definitely the
Oh,
best,
and he has an
one of the
E in
good
his
ways to
hand,
do
too.
it. Yeah, Engineered Explosive's a good start, but he can't really play Engineered Explosive for 1 here. He's got 2 amulets.
Yes, play it on 0 and like just kill like
Yeah, not really going to go his
on
way.
Steven's EE.
Engineered Explosives off the top for Steven. Interesting to see what he's going to want to do with that. There's an argument to play it on 1 and crack it, but the real question is, does he want to give up his Arkham's Astrolabes to do that?
Probably has an Emery. Doesn't matter.
I tend to think the answer is yes as well. Go ahead and get rid of double amulet. You kind of feel obliged, like you have to, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have your Emery will get to recast 1 of the Astrolabes at least this turn, and yeah, it's going to draw you a card in the process, and you're pretty happy about that, I think. So I think we're going to see Steven draw a card, recast an Astrolabe. He agrees, draws a land, and then I expect Steven to just kind of ship the turn back for now. No reason to activate this Wishclaw Talisman. We can wait till next turn where we can activate it, go find what we want, and cast the 4-mana spell we're
And it looks like
finding.
Jesse's hand is Primeval Titan, land.
That looks right to me. Pretty, and the Engineered Explosives. It looks like this is a pretty normal Amulet Titan-y hand, like lands and Primeval Titans, and you're like, man, I hope these are good enough. You know, you're like, I'm gonna play my lands, I'm gonna play these Primeval Titans, and man, I hope they're good enough.
Also a valid point that Steven might have been able to win that turn if he had a Jeskai Ascendancy in his deck.
Yeah, he would have been able to tutor for it and then combo kill Jesse. Absolutely. So, definitely worth noting. Although, you know, Steven has decided, like we said, to remove that card from his deck. So, worth noting that would have been good this game. For sure. All right. Although I do, however, think that the Wishclaw Talisman is one of the slots that was really able to be put into the deck because of freeing up those Jeskai Ascendancies. I've heard tell of people wanting to play 1 anyways, but I wouldn't be surprised if Steven were up to as many as 2 now, so it wouldn't really surprise me if that Wishclaw Talisman would have just been a Jeskai Ascendancy. That being said, that still would have worked. You don't have to tutor for it if it just is the card. So, looks like a Witching Well here from Steven. We're going to scry 2, take a look, see which of these we want. Didn't get a good look at them.
Flowing Chalice and something else.
Yeah. Looks like top bottom will
The
Steven.
bottom of the Chalice, we'll see exactly what the other card was.
Looks like it was a Mox Opal. Or Mishra's Bauble.
Got it.
It was a Mishra's Bauble, which Steven will cast. Steven's hand now a Polluted Delta and I saw it, an Engineered Explosives. Is that it? And a Mox Opal.
Yeah.
Okay. Send the turn back to Jesse. And let's see what he's got going on. Jesse, you expecting land go here? Land go seems the most likely. Ooh, Azusa. That was a good one.
All
I think
right.
Jesse drew that for turn. He could have had it in his hand last turn, and we just didn't notice it.
Yeah, we failed to notice
Looks
it,
like
but-
gain 2 life from a Radiant Fountain. Will Jesse. And Bauble. Ooh, that was a Summoner's Pact on top of
That's gas.
Jesse's deck. So Steven definitely going to know that Primeval Titan is on the way. Even if he didn't before.
But with
So-
no amulets, it's a lot less scary.
Steven Bauble myself on upkeep. He's going to draw 2 cards. 1 and 2, and then for turn 1 more. I do believe.
No, I don't think he used 2 wobbles. I think he just used 1.
He just used 1 and then stalled for a long time in his upkeep after he looked at his top card. All right, sick. Nice and confusing. All right. We see an Urza off the top here from Steven, as well as a Psy. I believe we are going off now.
Yeah, this is it.
So here comes the Psy from Steven. That being said, most of Steven's mana... Jesse with the 2 face-up Primeval Titans in hand. He knows Summoner's Pact is on top. Steven electing to cast Urza instead of that Psy. And he's going to make a construct, presumably immediately cast the Psy, And then go ahead and just start going off, really. He's going to be able to Wish Claw Talisman for Paradoxical Outcome, generate a bunch of mana. He does have that Mox Opal in his hand still, so that'll help with that plan. Here is the Sai we mentioned. Mox Opal, trigger, make a 1/1, which Steven will be using Murkrow to represent. I'm a big fan of Steven's tokens here. He's got the whole thing mapped out. His Registeels are his constructs, his Murkrows are his Thopters, and his Porygons are his servos. So he's really on point with his tokens here.
He's got a style.
Yeah, he knows what's good. He's a big fan of other trading card game cards being tokens for Magic. He's well known for using Pokemon cards. Also a big fan of Final Fantasy TCG cards, which I'm pretty into myself. Thoroughly enjoyed using some Dark Knights whenever I was making my Knight tokens with History of Benalia back in the day when I'd borrow a Stephen Boston deck. So there's some Stephen Boston specials, your Ivory Silver Sleeves. Although he is stepping away from that norm for a moment here with his Halloween sleeves.
These sleeves are sweet.
They are sweet. I actually really liked him. I just walked over to him at the start of the first round and just picked up his sideboard card and stared at it, and he was like, "Are you just showing my opponent my sideboard card?" I was like, "These sleeves are sweet." And then put the Thoughtseize back in his box.
Phenomenal.
All right. So Wishclaw Talisman for Paradoxical Outcome will Steven. Let's see what he wants to do with it. Looks like we're going to be tapping 4 mana, 1 Murkrow included. And going to cast our own Paradoxical Outcome. Paradoxical Outcome, presumably going to be targeting all of the relevant things that it can. Steven agrees. So this is Paradoxical Outcome for 6.
And note, all of these
7
things...
by picking up the Emery as well.
Yes, now he's going to draw 7 cards, and that whole hand, and every artifact he plays gets to make him a servo.
Which generates a mana.
And so do all these artifacts that interplay untapped. So he's going to get to make, actually 20 mana, and then, win from there?
Basically, he's probably going to generate a board state. It's pretty likely that Steven will draw his entire deck this turn. Notably, Steven will... that'll help a lot. The Sai, of course, or the Saheeli going to make double the Thopters every time he casts a spell. So basically, every time Steven casts an artifact, he's going to get 2 tokens, both of which can be tapped for mana because of Urza. So every spell is going to generate Steven 2 mana. Here's his land for turn, by the way.
Oh.
And Steven's just going to try and draw his whole deck and go off with Nexus of Fate. And even if he has to pass the turn, what's he really scared of? He's going to pass the board with, presumably 20 flyers or whatever.
And his opponent was going to draw a Titan with 5 mana in play.
Yeah. So, Steven also knows that's happening, so he doesn't even have to worry about setting up any sort of, kill this turn. He can just safely pass the turn back, knowing that his opponent's just going to draw a blank. Mystic Sanctuary is going to put Paradoxical Outcome back on top of Steven's deck.
Oh, that's gas.
Here comes 2 more tokens. 1 from Saheeli, 1 from Sai. Steven trying to navigate his own Denotion here. He's got his tapped Porygon out, and he's just ready to start tapping them for mana. So Mox Opal, make a Thopter and a Servo. Witching Well, spend a mana, make a Thopter and a Servo. Scry 2, Paradoxical Outcome on the top, of course. And the
Jesse
Scalding Tarn. Send it back. Yeah, Jesse being the good guy here. He's like, here's how you do this. Just, I'll keep track of all of your things. Jesse's got the look of a man that's winning a game. He's just got the head on the forehead, the hair down ridge is like, oh my god, what's happening? How am I ever beating any of this? Jesse's like, yeah, if there's a land on top, maybe I can just win. Steven, if Steven just told him your top card summoner's packed, we'd be done here. Jesse wouldn't make him go through all this. It's not like Jesse can beat literally what's happening right
Oh, Jesse's
now.
gonna Wish Claw Talisman,
That's true. You can
Oh,
wish Claw
oh.
Talisman for nothing.
not Hive Mind.
Yeah. He might have a Hive Mind in
he
his
can,
deck. I'm
he
not
can
sure.
Wish Claw for a bounce land. Play the bounce land, pick up a land, play a land. Is that 6 mana?
No, because you have to pay 1 mana to activate Wish Claw
Oh my
Talisman.
god, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really sad actually. Here comes an Emery. Milling 4 cards, Will Steven. Paradoxical Outcome. Going to pick up all of the things it can. Going to draw Steven. I didn't quite see, but it's probably somewhere like 5 or 6 cards. Looks like it was 5.
Alright, and still no sign of...
Still no kill condition
Yeah.
quite yet. We're looking for Nexus of Fate and more Paradoxical Outcomes.
Oh god,
So.
there's no way he misses. Oh, is he going to clean up? What's he doing?
No, I think he's just putting all of the cards that don't matter right now in a separate pile.
That makes sense.
It's pretty commonplace for decks like this that are just drawing so many cards. Mill another 4. Of course, every time Steven does this, he's just effectively digging 4 more towards this Nexus of Fate. He's just casting his Emerys over and over again. Mill 4, mill 4, mill 4. Pick it up with Paradoxical Outcome. Mill 4, mill 4, mill 4. Because you're never worried about milling your Nexus of Fate because it just shuffles back in. But Steven is effectively shortening the size of his deck so that he can draw his whole deck this turn. So here's another 4 going off the top. There's that Nexus of Fate. That'll get shuffled back in.
He's got,
Steven looks like
10, 15 cards left.
that looks about right. Jesse no cut Chasen gives it right back.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh boy, was Jesse so close to winning this game, and
Yeah,
just like
so-
1 EE later.
Yeah, no joke. So looks like
Now Steven's up to just replaying all these things, making a bunch of mana, and can he draw another card this turn to...
Steven,
or-
he has another Paradoxical Outcome. So he's just casting all of his Emerys, milling all of the cards off of his deck, making his deck as small as possible so that the Paradoxical Outcome will be able to draw him his Nexus of Fate, more than likely. That is Steven's plan currently, and it's a good one. He's still got all of his artifact mana that he can play this turn. Once again, that is. He's got Everflowing Chalice, Mox Opal, Mox Amber. All of those are going to make 2 tokens. He's got a Mishra's Bauble as well, and Wishing Well costs 1 mana to make 2 1/1s, so that's plus a mana too. And it's Scry too, so that effectively gets 2 cards off the top that aren't Nexus of Fate. Very good. Here comes that Wishing Well, so Steven gonna look at 2 cards, see if either of them are Nexus of Fate, and if they aren't, they're gonna go to the bottom. That is 2 cards that aren't Nexus. Oh, that is Nexus of Fate. That one will stay on top, and that, of course, is going to be lethal. As soon as Steven shows Jesse the Paradoxical Outcome, I expect us to move on to the next game. Assuming Steven doesn't draw his whole deck on accident.
He'll find it out.
All right.
All right. This
Looks
game
like-
is now over once Jesse decides to concede,
yep.
or...
Cast Nexus of Fate.
All right, there we go.
That one will do it for Jesse. And looks like we're going to get to the sideboard. So in this sideboard, Steven has 2 Veil of Summer, 1 Dead of Winter, 2 Fatal Push, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Collective Brutality, 3 Oko Thief of Crowns, and 2 Mystical Dispute. What do you like?
All right, well, Oko's secretly ridiculous against Amulet. I'm not going to lie. Oko, turn your Amulet into 3/3s. It's just so good.
Okay.
And turning off Azuzas and making Titans have 3/3s with no abilities stops, like, if he can't haste a Titan now, like, he's not untapping with a Titan. So I just like Oko's Thoughtseize probably.
Okay. Great.
And from Jesse's side, snap this Manglehorn off. These Force of Vigors 100%. And probably those Dismembers.
Yeah, we need ways to deal with Urza, that's for sure. Disdainful Stroke counters all of the relevant spells in Steven's deck, except for, I guess, like Sai and Saheeli, which are relevant, but they're not, Urza or
He wants the
Paradoxical.
second EE. And then, dare I say, Oko again? Is that too greedy? I think that might be having to take out too much.
Yeah, I don't think Oko's going to be good against Steven's deck. He has a lot of dumb artifacts, but all of those dumb artifacts are kind of just dumb artifacts, and they really kind of just sit and play more often than not as zero-cost artifacts ready to get brought back with paradoxical outcome. So I don't think making them a 3/3 is really doing a whole much, because you still could just pick them up with... Or actually, I'm not sure you can. No, you can, because Oko does not turn them into a token. It just turns them into a 3/3 elk with no abilities.
Yeah.
So...
Okay.
All right, so looks like Steven fiddling with some Thoughtseizes there. Obviously, Thoughtseize is one of the better cards against the Amulet Titan, being able to take the piece out of their hand that they're missing. And sometimes you look at the hand full of, like, you know, they play an Amulet on turn 1, and then you see a hand full of, like, lands and a Teleria West, and you're like, well, this is awkward. That's a Primeval Titan, but I can't take it. But more often than not, you're going to be able to find a relevant target with your Thoughtseizes.
Yeah, you're gonna take that Azusa that they could turn to.
Yeah,
playing
for sure.
Or, yeah, Thoughtseize is quite backbreaking. Way better than Inquisition. It takes the actual Titans.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so going into game number 2 here, looks like our players have decided on their sideboard plans. Let's see how it goes for Steven and Jesse in game number 2.
Well, Jesse's on the play, so that's a big deal.
It is a big deal, yeah, and we saw Jesse's draw be potentially powerful in that last game, but kind of just get hamstringed by good engineered explosives.
Yeah.
And perhaps Jesse should have only played one amulet, and, you know, maybe shouldn't have just slammed the second one on the board. These decks do play a lot of the card engineered explosives, so you have to be very conscious.
4, right?
I think it's 3, but still, it's a lot. I believe they pay 3 engineered explosives and 1 Everflowing Chalice as their X artifacts. Alright, looks like both players keeping their opening 7-card hand. We're starting with Snow-Covered Forest Ancient Stirrings over on Jesse's side. Looks like we're going to find
this Castle Garenbrig.
Indeed, and send it on over to Steven. Steven takes a draw, Everflowing Chalice it is. He's got a hand with a Sai, Everflowing Chalice, couple lands, perhaps an Emery in there as well. Not 100% sure. I do believe there's an Emery in there, as well as a Thoughtseize. So Steven definitely debating if he wants to just cast this Thoughtseize on turn 1, or maybe if he wants to try and power out an Emery. Looks like Steven is going to go with the Thoughtseize line.
Yeah, I really like that.
Putting him down to
Jesse
16.
Spent his first turn on an Ancient Stirrings.
Ooh, no, it looks like it is the Emery line. All right, so Mox Opal and Everflowing Chalice, mill 4 with my Emery. I can't see if there's anything relevant in the graveyard. We'll get word from our producer there.
Or we'll see him tap his Emery and bring something back, and it'll be there.
Yeah, it looks like the ever-famous Amulet start of Simic Growth Chamber Bounce My Land.
2 lands were milled.
Oof. All right, not the best from Steven. All right, looks like we're going to get a good look at Jesse's hand here as he untaps. And let's take a look with this Thoughtseize. Looks like Jesse's hand is 2 Primeval Titans, a Summoner's Pact, Azusa, and 3 lands. Those lands are Snow-Covered Forest, Castle Garenbrig, Forest Garrison.
You take this Azusa.
I would take this Azusa for sure here. The real question is Jesse supposed to prime Summoner's Pact for Azusa after this?
I think that answer is yes.
I tend to agree.
It just lets him make the turn 5 his Titan instead of turn 4 his Titan, and that's like such a big deal.
Yeah, I agree. The Castle Garenbrig, of course, is a 1-turn accelerant in and of itself, but even if you end up playing your Primeval Titan on the same effective turn, you end up getting your Azusa into play, and Azusa Primeval Titan is a powerful way to do things. So going ahead and casting his Summoner's Pact. Steven, of course, no interaction for this. Steven's hand looks to be pretty anemic currently. It's just land, Mox Opal, and a Sai, I believe is the last card.
Yeah, but this is all fixable by seeing the starters of this game.
Yeah, Urza off the top would basically do it. But I don't know. I would rather be in Jesse's spot right now.
Yeah, me too.
And that's, of course, being able to see Steven's hand, which Jesse cannot. And, you know, Steven's going to have some redraws with his Sai. It gets to sacrifice some useless artifacts like this, Everflowing Chalice on 0. Or, you know, the second Mox Opal or whatever. But just to name an example. And draw some cards. But he is going to need to hit on those draw steps. He's going to get like 3 or 4, but he will need to hit. Looks like here is that Azusa, followed by Boros Garrison and Castle Garenbrig. Boros Garrison deciding what to bounce right now, I do believe. Looks like Boros Garrison is going to bounce itself. Okay, we're not playing Boros Garrison. We're instead playing Teleria West.
Got it.
All right, that checks out.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
And Steven Endstep will crack his fetch land down to 15, finding presumably a breeding pool tapped. Indeed it is.
And, man, do not want to be at 16 or lower against the Amulet Titan deck, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, our opponent doesn't have any Amulet of Vigors, and also this deck's pretty good at actually just generating a bunch of dumb toughness between Psy and all the Thopters it makes, and also Psy's just a 1/4, you know, or Emery's a 1/2, so if we need to put a dumb thing in front of a Primeval Titan and not die, I think Steven will have that covered.
That makes sense.
Looks like Engineered Explosives off the top for Steven.
Not quite as good this time.
Yeah, we could, kill this Azusa, but it also kills our Emery.
Yeah, sell off that.
None of it's great, but Steven might feel pressured into doing it.
He did play ZE for 3.
He did, in fact, cast the Engineered Explosives for 3. So it looks like Steven does want to do it. Steven, unwind that one. I think I'd rather just see the Psy here. Looks like Steven agrees. All right, Psy from Steven. Now he's going to have to decide if he wants to do anything with this Engineered Explosives. EE for 0, of course, makes a Thopter and allows Steven to tap his Mox Opal for mana, but he still can't sacrifice any artifacts this turn. That does cost 2 mana. But it looks like he still wants to go ahead and go for it. He'll make a Murkrow. Or a Thopter, as they're probably better known. And pass the turn back over to Jesse, assumedly. Ooh, looks like Steven does want to just go ahead and Lotus Petal his Mox Opal, and then go ahead and be able to sacrifice some cards, some artifacts to draw some cards.
He's going to stack both Thopters.
Both the Thopters or both the artifacts that are sitting in play doing nothing is another reasonable line.
That's
because
fair.
he could then,
Start using his
Emery
Yeah.
back some of them, which looks like he is going to do. Top card, did not see it. Looks like a land.
Well, that
not a bad
means
draw.
He gets to use his Emery put back in this.
Yeah, he looks like he already played a land this turn, which I agree.
Oh.
Emery, of course, will get a Mox Opal back. Or any of the 0-mana artifacts that he can just, slap onto the battlefield for free. Looks like he wants the Everflowing Chalice. Makes another Murkrow. Says go. Pay for my Summoner's Pact, will Jesse. Looks like some time for some lands here, I think.
Yep.
Boros Garrison picking up Teleria West. And Solar's Stronghold, of course. Right off the top.
As we like it.
And one more Teleria West back into play. Looks
Pass
like
turn.
Jesse is going to be able to cast and haste a Primeval Titan next turn.
Oh, Steven draws a Paradoxical Outcome.
Well, that was probably the best card in his deck. So that's a good start. So we have land, Paradoxical Outcome. We can also activate our Emery here and get an actual and get another 0-cost artifact into play so we can pick up even more things. He does need Urza if he wants to go fully off this turn, but the Paradoxical Outcome should be able to draw him 3 cards here, if not potentially even 4 if he wants to pick up either his Emery or his Psy as well to dig him towards it.
I like picking up Emery and the 3 artifacts and drawing 4 cards.
I don't hate that line. Let's see what Steven decides to do here.
Well, step 1's in my deck.
Step 1, get the mana I need to cast my spell.
Yeah.
Tend to agree with that part. Of course, he does have the Mox Opal, but, we're going to get to float a blue mana here. Leave our Watery Grave untapped is the best course of action, I do believe. Looks like Steven doesn't care about any of that, so we are going to Paradoxical Outcome. Indeed, the 3 artifacts and the Emery. Draw 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, and
Emery
4.
Island,
There's the Urza.
Astrolabe.
Okay.
So Steven can't win this turn.
He's not going to be able to make enough mana to replay his Urza, unfortunately. Or to be able to play his Urza, but he will be able to set up a very commanding board state for a very likely win next turn. So, let's see how much Steven can really get done here. Of course, he does have his Mox Opal. He'll be able to make a lot of Murkrows.
And surprisingly, Steven is kind of close to dead. Like
he is, yeah. I mean, Jesse is going to get a Primeval Titan into play and give it haste on his turn. And
he could attack and double strike it.
I do think that Steven has enough Murkrows and enough Thopters to just be able to
not die,
block, and trade. But we're going to have to see what Jesse wants here. What do you think the best choices are?
He could get... So right now he can get Teleria West and Summon Grow Chamber and Fight Impact and Negation. Make haste his Titan, attack you, get like what do we want here? Like Radiant Fountain and...
See, none of this seems particularly good. I think we might just want the Pact of Negation.
Yeah, like he's attacking with his Primeval Titan this turn, right? Like that.
Yeah, we should be.
Wait. How do you bounce this Teleria West? He got Bajuka Bog.
He got Bajuka Bog and a Bounce Line. And a Simic.
He already had. Got it. Missed that.
Yeah, and a Simic Growth Chamber. And he already had a Teleria West in play.
So now he wants... what are you doing?
I think we want to go... We can't actually get a Pact this turn. We don't have an Amulet, so we can't transmute.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it's probably just Field of the Dead.
Yeah, Field, Radiant Fountain, gain 2. Give yourself a little bit of cushion.
You ought to be able to find something better than Radiant Fountain, I would hope. Maybe. Honestly, just a Teleria West seems better. Set yourself up for a later date, or even just put a Sun Home into play tapped for next turn. Seems a little bit better than just get a random Radiant Fountain in gain 2. We aren't really that worried about our life total. If we're dying by a lot.
That's true. He's not going to Xyz us. He's going to kill us.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. Looks like Jesse agrees, at least somewhat. He doesn't go for the Field of the Dead, but he does go with Teleria West and Sun Home. So, an 8-power Titan coming in at Steven. I expect Steven to say okay.
Yeah, he's going to untap and play his Urza and be so far
and probably kill his opponent.
Yeah, but I mean, he could miss.
He can miss, but I don't think he's very likely to. His hand has a Paradoxical Outcome and an Urza in it.
And he's good at this game.
Yes, and Steven is good, so don't expect any, fatal mistakes. Looks like Steven will go ahead and take the 8 down to 6, will he be? And I think it's just going to be his turn.
Looking for his graveyard.
It's now his exile because of the Bajuka Bog.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, that will deal with the Emery, but this Nexus of Fate still in Steven's deck and is still going to be a large problem for Jesse. If Steven manages to find it, I think we're going to be done here. So that's basically what's this turn's going to be about, is can Steven successfully find his Nexus of Fate and generate enough of an advantage while doing so to be able to win the game. So Steven does also critically have those 4 islands, so if he saves his land drop for a later point, if he manages to find a Mystic Sanctuary, he will be able to put Paradoxical Outcome back on top of his deck. Quite relevant.
Which was super good last game.
So here comes the Urza making a Construct, or a Registeel, as Steven has denoted. And then let's see how Steven wants to start this turn. I'm not sure how many Murkrows he has, but it is a lot.
Yep. Map checks out.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere around like 9 or 10, if I had to guess. So Paradoxical Outcome. It looks like starting with Emery. So start with an Emery. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
An Astrolabe.
Did mill a Mystic Sanctuary. And then we'll see Steven casting his Paradoxical Outcome, presumably returning all legal targets to his hand except Sai, I think. Yeah. I think we're going to pick up Emery. I think we're going to pick up the works.
Well, I like using your Emery to get this Astrolabe into play before we Paradoxical Outcome, but...
yeah, that makes sense. Looks like here comes
just going for it.
4 mana. Make it 5. And tapping some of these, and Paradoxical Outcome with some mana floating, I believe. So we were returning. Looks like those 8.
Untapped.
Well, he only has one Emery. It is legendary.
Oh, yeah.
He just casted Emery to mill 4 and then sacrificed it to legend rule. So pick up these 8, draw 8 cards. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and
Wishclaw
8.
Talisman.
That was kind of a whiff.
No, he drew Wishclaw Talisman. He's fine. He's going to play all these artifacts. He's going to play his land for turn. He's going to tap for black mana. He's going to send his Wishclaw Talisman, Wish for Nexus of Fate, and his opponent's going to lose.
It's true. But it was like 7 lands other than that. Like, Wishclaw Talisman's good. But, like, man, it really looks very unimpressive. But, yeah, I do think the Wishclaw Talisman will be able to find a Nexus of Fate and finish off the game here. Looks like Steven drawing 2 cards off some Astrolabes. Here comes more 0-mana artifacts. Another Everflowing Chalice, making another Thopter. Okay. And let's see. We've got 2 mana here for Wishclaw Talisman. Wishclaw Talisman for Nexus of Fate. And that is going to do it. Stephen Boston taking down Jesse Chasson in a quick 2 games. Paradoxical outcome over Amulet Titan. With that, I would like to thank our second sponsor of the stream for the night. I would like to give a huge shout out to Die Hard Dice. Die Hard Dice are a brand making metal dice for all types of tabletop RPGs or tabletop games in general. They make the best dice sets for the best tabletop games. If you are into Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop RPGs in general, Gloomhaven, any game that uses these type of dice, I highly recommend you guys check them out. They also make excellent dice trays. They're great for Warhammer. So I've been told by many people who play that game as well. So really, if you're into that type of thing, anything that uses dice, they make the best dice around. They feel really good to roll, and I've found that they roll 20s more than other dice. So if that's not a reason to buy them, I don't know what is. Thank you so much to Die Hard Dice for supporting the stream and letting us be here. With that, we're going to leave you guys with some Hot Damn Scandal, and we'll be back for the last round.
fell out of the clouds today, and the rain came down like a mirror. One big sheet and it shattered on the ground. Now it's 7 years of bad luck all over this town. It's collection time on all of your debts, and you can't get by just talking. Your smile don't work, and your car don't start, and your doors ain't keeping you alone. No, not even if you lock 'em. No, not even if you lock 'em. When you're tapped into that rhythm vein, just about anything feels good. The sun tried shining on a lost boy's eyes. They reflected oh so pretty, but it's cold behind them golden shores, and the sweet light wasn't nothing more than their own damn wishing, 'cause they just don't listen. Now wish on your candles, pray to your God, cry for your mama, put $1 on the bar. It feels like breathing, but the only good feeling ain't a gamble is a sin. So I think I play it safe and get a gin. I'll take the devil for a spin. When you're tapped into that bitter vein, just about anything feels good. For some the morning brings another day, but all it does for me is shine an ugly light around in the room that I've been hiding in. Now I take the easy way, yeah, that gets harder every day, but I ain't here to fix myself. I'm just trying to blind these eyes from hell. When you're tapped into that beat of vein, just about anything feels good. The bottom fell out of the clouds today, and the rain came down like a mirror. One big sheet and it shattered on the ground. Now it's 7 years of bad luck all over this town. It's collection time on all of your debts, and you can't get by just talking. Your smile don't work, and your car don't start, and your doors ain't keeping you alone. No, not even if you lock 'em. No, not even if you lock 'em. When you're tapped into that bit of fame, just about anything feels good. tried shining on a lost boy's eyes. They reflected oh so pretty, but it's cold behind them golden shores, and the sweet light wasn't nothing more than their own damn wishing, 'cause they just don't listen. Now wish on your candles, pray to your God, cry for your mama, put $1 on the bar. It feels like breathing, but the only good feeling ain't a gamble is a sin. So I think I'll play it safe and get a gin. I'll take the devil for a spin. When you're tapped into that bitter vein, just about anything feels good. For some the morning brings another day, but all it does for me is shine an ugly light around in the room that I've been hiding in. Now I take the easy way, yeah, that gets harder every day, but I ain't here to fix myself, I'm just trying to blind these eyes from hell. When you're tapped into that bitter vein, just about anything feels good.
Okay.
This is round 3 here, the final round, and we've got Steven again, still on Paradoxical Urza, and we've got Gray on Humans.
Yes, so welcome back. This is the third and final round. This is Table 1 at tonight's Modern Tournament, so playing for 3-0 undefeated. And gonna have to see how this one goes. My initial instinct is that Humans is probably favored in this matchup.
Yeah. Slam Manly Mage named Urza or Paradoxical Outcome, and this game's probably super over.
Yeah, Humans kind of a little bit of a blast from the past here.
But with enough EDEs, anything's possible.
Yeah, Engineered Explosives is a big problem for the deck.
But
So
so is Thalia for Steven.
yes, similarly, but Steven's deck has a tendency to dump its whole hand before turn 2. That being said, Steven on a quick mull to 5 here is going to be an uphill battle. Gray's hand, however, looks quite good. He's got a couple meddling mages, Thalia, I believe a champion of the parish as well, or 2. So I'm pretty optimistic for Gray's side in this game number 1 here. If I had to take bets on that one, it's pretty hard to bet on a mull to 5 usually. So
Yeah.
looks like
Oh, and
Gray is
Gray's
also on the play.
too.
Oh, no 1-drop though. That is good news for Steven.
It is. But you didn't keep the 7 for nothing, so...
Yeah, here is a bunch of dumb things that cycle, says Steven. And let's see what Gray has to find.
Is meddling mage mana?
It is. It could be that or Thalia. Looks like it
Thalia.
is Thalia. The real question is, how familiar is Gray with the matchup? Does he know that Engineered Explosives is a large part of Steven's game plan?
Oh, now he does.
Because if he did, I think he would have just played Meddling Mage, naming Engineered Explosives that turn. Because Engineered Explosives is a huge problem for this Humans deck, and I was very familiar with this back when KCI was a very big deck, because KCI played a lot of Engineered Explosives for the Humans matchup because it was more popular then, and it was a pretty well-known thing that your first Meddling Mage needed to name Engineered Explosives, and then the second one named Cart Clan Ironworks.
Don't forget EE's on 1.
No, Engineered Explosives is on 2.
Oh, yeah, because he put 2 mana into it.
Yeah, it's the normal Thalia Engineered Explosives interaction, which is a
man.
little weird for people who aren't familiar, but essentially Thalia...
No, did he play the Breeding Pool tapped and then just tap his land to make EE 1? Or
No, he cast Engineered Explosives with 2 counters on it. And then, so when you announce that you're casting Engineered Explosives, you can declare it as X is 1, paying a blue mana.
Yeah.
And then pay a green mana to pay for Thalia's tax.
Yeah, I get that.
And Engineered Explosives enters the battlefield with 2 counters on it. So.
But I'm saying, like, did Steven put this Breeding Pool on the plate? Did he play Breeding Pool tapped?
On turn 1,
Okay,
correct.
got it.
Yes.
So then, yeah, this EE's on 2.
Yep, and the EE is on 2. So here's an attack from Gray. Steven down to 14. There are the life totals. And here is a Militia Bugler.
Haven't seen this
Look at the
card in a
top
while.
4, Will Gray. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call Gray out here, or call myself out, I guess. Gray asked to borrow a modern deck, and I handed him my outdated Humans deck of old. So I have not updated it since, well, any of the new good cards have come out. So Gray's just kind of running the old list, but I actually think it's going to be quite effective against this list that Steven's brought.
So I guess out of 14 card sideboard, but Brad's so kind, he put a Jeskai Ascendancy in as the 15th card.
Steven did? Looks like... Oh,
Yeah,
the
for
humans card did. The human sideboard did. Excellent.
You can cast it off your opponent's
Blood Moon. It's perfect.
I cannot see it going wrong.
It's perfect. Now all we need are non-creature spells. We have Aether Vial, I guess.
Yep. Pump the
Okay.
team. It's a lord.
So, we've got an Emery here from Steven. Milling 4 cards. Didn't look like anything relevant. Mishra's Bauble still in play. And this Engineered Explosives still hanging out on 2 with another EE in hand. So, Steven's got plenty of reactionary tools currently. He's just looking to find a proactive plan to actually turn the corner and try and win the game. Gray, on the other hand, has a handful of threats, and he's just trying to navigate himself into a position where he can force Steven to crack this Engineered Explosives while still having enough behind that he can threaten effectively. He's really trying to clear the way for Meddling Mage. So it looks like Gray going to cast this Thalia's Lieutenant, put a +1/+1 counter on his team, and this is probably going to be enough to force Steven to crack this. He probably doesn't want to take 6 here. Probably taking 3 instead is far more appealing.
Oh.
Steven has the discipline, will take the 6, go down to 8. Pretty obvious from Gray that he really just needs this Engineered Explosives off the
Noble Hire
battlefield.
played Mistrigger on the Thalia's Lieutenant.
Correct. But it's just going to die anyway, so no harm, no foul there. And untap Will Steven after he takes a look at Gray's top card with a Mishra's Bauble. Draw on his upkeep for the Bauble. Draw for turn, will Steven.
Now he gets to start drawing 2 cards every turn with this Emery.
Indeed, but he still needs to find a plan. His life total is under threat, and he's going to have to find a way to deal with it. He's got Engineered Explosives every turn for the rest of the game with Emery.
On top of Gray's deck.
Oh boy, that's bad news for...
And it's castable.
That is definitely bad news for Steven.
Goes
He's presumably just going to stick an Engineered Explosives on 3 then this turn, right?
He's fetching now to go to 7.
Does he have the colors? He does. He has to fetch and shock, unfortunately, because he knows this Mantis Rider's coming. So he's just going to have to slap a Engineered Explosives on 3 and then just hope that everything goes well for him with a 1 Engineered Explosives for turn. So then it's going to be up to Gray to try and diversify his threats and their mana cost so that he can sneak through the last few points of damage. Gray really wishing he played Meddling Mage on Engineered Explosives on turn 2 of this game instead of that Thalia.
Yeah, I don't think he had it though anyway.
He did have it.
He does have it.
He did and does have it.
Okay.
So this is that's why I went off on that old rant about the whole KCI Humans matchup of ye olden days, and how this one probably feels pretty similar, where Humans was favored, but not by a lot, and most of it revolved around the play of Engineered Explosives, and it's the most important card in the matchup for either side by a mile. And I believe that remains true in this variation of artifact combo. So Gray will untap, draw his Mantis Rider for the turn. Let's see what he wants to do on his turn. Gray's classic finger counting. Gray has access to 5 mana this turn, 2 from the Noble Hierarchs, 3 from his lands. Of course, not drawing a land, he is drawing that Mantis Rider. Looks like Gray just elects just to go ahead and attack for 5, and of course, Steven's going to have to blow that up, so attack for 5 is going to force Steven's hand. Let's see what Gray wants to do post-combat.
Like Steven,
of course, does have to sacrifice his own Emery. Looks like he'll start with a Thalia.
Oh.
And here comes Meddling Mage. I expect this one to name Engineered Explosives. Potentially Urza, but...
I'm not super off at just naming Urza.
we have a Mantis Rider, right? Yeah, it is... We have the confirmation there. Engineered Explosives is the name from Gray. And,
okay, I like naming Urza there because you have two Noble Hierarchs. So if he goes E on 2, blow it up, we get to go untap Mantis Rider, attack you for lethal.
Yeah, but if he just plays an EE and just leaves it on 3 or 2 or whatever, then we don't have that line. Right, he's gonna play the
leaves it on 2, passes, and we just play our Mantis Rider and attack him without attacking our 2 drops.
Yeah, but he won't do that because he knows we have that. Right, we got to remember that.
Yeah, that's true.
So our opponent would take a line that did not leave him dead, assuming they had one. Of course, Steven does not have the Urza or the Engineered Explosives, so largely a moot point. Steven agrees, and we're going to be going to the next game. So right. Steven in the sideboard has 2 Veil of Summer, 1 Dead of Winter, 2 Fatal Push, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Collective Brutality, 3 Oko, Thief of Crowns, and 2 Mystical Disputes. What do you like?
So, Dead of Winter, for sure. Fatal Pushes, for sure. And I'm fine with leaving it there and just still trying to combo kill your opponent as fast as you possibly can.
Thoughts on Oko?
I think Oko's bad against humans because their threats get counters.
They do.
Which is a big deal when your Oko makes them 3/3s into abilities. They're just going to be a 4/4 or 5/5.
Also, their lock pieces say all players. So Thalia and Meddling Mage taking them to your side of the battlefield doesn't actually do anything. You're still going to be locked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree.
I'm actually off Oko in this matchup, but in Mantis Rider, clock it in the air is something that could kill it.
Yeah. It does, however, make 3/3s on your side of the battlefield, so potentially helps you stabilize.
But that's every 2 turns, and I'm just I get he takes up to 6, so if you turn 2 or 3 this Oko, it might go the distance to make a 3-3, but I mean, man, it's not taking this game over like it does other matchups.
Totally. So, meanwhile, on Gray's side, we have 1 Kataki, War's Wage, 3 is it Staticaster, 1 Damping Sphere, 2 Knight of Autumn, 3 Sin Collector, 2 Gadok Teague, 1 Thalia, Heretic Cathar, and 1 Mirren Crusader. What do you like?
All right, so we're bringing this Kataki.
Kataki's a slam dunk.
I like the Damping Sphere. Doesn't let it stop Steven from storming off.
It does, but that's kind of all it does.
I think that's fine. Like, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it's not necessary, but I mean, it does enough against the deck to stop it from really doing it.
Yeah, Staticaster seems quite good. Steven's deck has a lot of ways to make dumb servos and
Mowing
Thopters
down
that we
every
need to get
X1.
through for sure. Between Saheeli and Sai, the Gadok Teague's shut off Paradoxical Outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Like, bring those in.
As well as
And-
Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, such a
So
big
that's
deal.
quite relevant. Knight of Autumn, of course, shatters artifacts. That seems quite good as well.
But again, as you said, that they play a lot of artifacts and don't really do anything. So, like, we care about shattering EEs and nothing else.
We do still care about destroying their mana rocks. Destroying Engineered Explosives quite good. Destroying Mox Opal quite good. I think that were I Gray, I'd be bringing in my Kataki,
Thalia doesn't suck.
2 Staticasters, and 2 Knight of Autumns, and the 2 Gadok Teagues. So quite a few cards.
Yeah.
Probably going to have to trim our Militia Buglers. This isn't really a grindy matchup. That's where I'd start for sure. Kite Sail Freebooter seems like the next one to go to me.
I really like this Thalia, I think, from the board. If Steven tries to go off, all his servos and stuff enter tapped.
It definitely does hamstring Urza specifically, which might be relevant, but I think for the same reason that I'm kind of off the Damping Sphere, I think that really our plan is to prevent him from going off rather than try and hamstring his ability when he is going off. And even if he does go off to a certain degree, we still have a pretty powerful interaction with Is It Staticaster to be able to survive, untap, and kill our opponent. So that's kind of where I land in the matchup. But like I said, I haven't gotten to play this one a lot, so maybe you really do need those extra pieces to keep the deck from really going off.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, and I guess we're probably going to find out. So, of course, Steven on the Mold of 5 in game number 1. Not a super great representation of the matchup. Steven looked very close to being able to win that game.
Yeah.
He had the Emery Engineered Explosives thing going on. And, of course, Emery being 3 mana is what ended up being its downfall. But, if that Emery wasn't hit by that EE on 3, I think we would have seen potentially Steven be able to stabilize.
There was just too much CMC diversity in Gray's decks.
It was. Gray drew a lot of different threats, so we'll see how things go this time. Steven, of course, will be on the play for this game. His hand looks much more reasonable than his last ones. We have an Urza, a little bit of acceleration. Steven does have the Oko in his hand, so it looks like Steven disagreed there and wanted the Oko.
That is fair.
Looks like both players keeping their 7-card hand. Got that one from the body language. And here is Island Engineered Explosives for 1.
Island EE on 1. Cool. Oh, and
And
then
double Mishra's Bauble. Over to Gray. Cavern Naming Humans Noble Hierarch. Send it back. Let's see what Steven elects to do. Looks like he's going to take a look at Gray's top card. It's
Reflector Mage.
Reflector Mage.
that card seems actually pretty fine in this matchup.
Seems
Reflector
all
Mage
right.
and Emery is like alright.
Yeah, definitely. So draw 2 cards while Steven on his
Oh.
turn. Land and land. Not quite the hits we were looking for there. That's for sure. I expect land to go here from Steven. Does not elect to crack this Engineered Explosives on the first turn of his game, which I tend to agree.
Oh, never mind.
It looks like he will do it on draw step, however. So, whatever. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah. He's going to untap and draw some more cards again, probably.
Seems very likely. He might keep the Mishra's Bauble around because he wants to make it into a 3/3. Looks like a Thales Lieutenant with no effect, just a 2-mana 1/1 Champion of the Parish. Bauble U, I believe that was another Thalia's Lieutenant on top.
It might have been the other Thalia, though.
Very true.
Yeah, it was one of those.
Definitely one of the Thalia-esque.
And did he draw land again?
I
Oh.
think so, yeah.
It's poggers.
Here is Oko, Thief of Crowns, going to +2 and make a food token. Send it back to Gray. It is indeed a Thalia's Lieutenant on top of Gray's deck. He will draw it for turn. And now...
Oh, he played another Mishra's Bauble.
Another Mishra's Bauble. Excellent. So now let's see what Gray wants to do this turn. He's got the Gaddock Teeg in his hand. That one seems quite good, but he can't cast it unless he has a land that produces white or green mana, which it looks like he has a Horizon Canopy. So I think he will be able to get that Gaddock Teeg down. The real question is, does he want to get his lock piece in, or does he want to start playing his Thalia's Lieutenants? Looks like he elects for the Gaddock Teeg, and I think I agree with this play. What do you think?
Yeah, so pressuring Oko more is super essential. Oko will run away with this game, as I said, like it can, though I think the human's pressure can be is very often too great to do it.
I tend to agree. We have Oko at 5 now. Mox Amber was the draw for Steven. Looks like he will play it. Fourth land, Urza, seems very likely here from Steven. Of course, Gaddock Teeg will shut off the likes of Paradoxical Outcome and Engineered Explosives. Urza, however, you can just slide right in as a creature.
Yeah, and it's big.
It's not necessarily is big, but the construct it brings along is very big.
Well,
so,
also a 1/4 just what a butt.
It's true. I mean, Gray does have 2 Thalia's Lieutenants in his hand, so Gray is going to be able to amass an army large enough to get past it. But that construct is going to be a big problem, and I expect Gray to have to Reflector Mage it, and I think Steven won't be surprised given that he knows about it. The only real question is, what does Steven want to do with his tokens? Looks like he makes his food into a 3/3 and then just passes the turn. Doesn't want to spend any of the mana he has. Aether Vial off the top from Gray. And, well, now what?
Okay, so now he Reflector Mages and bounces the construct. I'm super in on that plan, because then double Thalia's Lieutenant gets a little bit better. Because right now he only has another Thalia's Lieutenant that can be buffed.
Indeed.
And, like, that's just so medium.
Yeah. Granted, each Thalia's Lieutenant does effectively give 2 counters to each Thalia's Lieutenant in play, so it makes it a little more palatable.
It's a
but
5/5.
Still, we're not going to be able to brawl with the 3/3 even. We'll be able to trade, and that's not quite our intention. Looks like Gray disagrees. Wants to start getting bigger as opposed to getting wider. So he's going to play the Thalia's Lieutenant and his Aether Vial. Of course, getting the Aether Vial into play sooner rather than later, definitely beneficial. It means that maybe he'll be able to get some value out of it, even though he drew it on the 4th turn of the game.
Steven has his E in his hand.
Yes, Engineered Explosives, the draw for Steven. Very good.
Oh, well, now the
Gaddock Teeg, a 3/3 with no abilities. There, of course, is Oko. And, Gray's done.
Right.
I agree. Oko, of course, showing its more text there. Get rid of that Gaddock Teeg. That thing's text is annoying. Let's get it out of here. Play my Engineered Explosives. Gray, of course, looks down at his hand of nothing but 2 drops that can attack past all of his creatures, and, well, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that was very quick.
Yep. So it looks
Oko
like
coming in on turn 3 and still pushing that entire game is phenomenal.
Indeed, yeah. Gray had a somewhat slow start because of Steven's Engineered Explosives, able to cut down Gray's early mana acceleration, and of course, Steven being on the play, a big part of that as well. But I do think it was a very relevant part of that game. If Gray got to get on board earlier with his 3 mana spells, he might have been able to deal with that Oko a little bit better and put Steven on the back foot instead of being on the back foot himself. All right. Moving on to game number 3. Gray, of course, will be on the play this time. And let's see how things are going to go.
I'm expecting it probably to go in Gray's favor. I'm assuming Steven doesn't play some Oko to nasty effect, or that Gray finds any hate piece for EE. Like, this should just go its way. He's on the play, and
looks like
Steven's disruption is pretty limited.
Yeah, it looks like Gray is going to keep his 7 Steven taking a
There's
quick
Kite
mulligan.
Sail Freebooter in there.
2 lands, Kitesail Freebooter, Mantis Rider, Gaddock Teague, Militia Bugler, and a Thalia's Lieutenant was, I believe, the hand from Gray. Meanwhile, on Steven's side, looks like a pretty reasonable 6-card hand. I do see Oko again. Horizon Canopy Go. No 1-drop once again from Gray. Pretty unfortunate. You really want to see 1-drops out of this Humans deck. It's very important to the game
there
plan.
it is. There's a
Of course,
Parish,
right on top of the deck is the Champion of the Parish.
which I think he just plays now. Nope.
Seems
He's gonna play this
unlikely.
Gaddock Teague. Oh, Kite Sail.
Yeah, I don't think you can really slow down that much to play this Champion of the Parish. You're going to be able to weave it in at some point later down the road, but I think that's going to be have to happen.
So we
when
got
it
Paradoxical
happens.
Outcome, which is dead to this Gaddock Teague.
Collective Brutality,
Collective Brutality. Yep.
and Oko. Looks like Gray snapped off the Collective Brutality. He's like, wait a second, I want this Oko. I think I agree with this choice here from Gray. So Steven's hand, pretty
But doesn't
good.
he just untap and Collective Brutality and kill that, get his Oko back?
Yes,
Okay.
but at least he forces him to do it. In the other way, he gives Steven the option of having either a Collective Brutality or an Oko. So it's definitely right to take the Oko and just make Steven do it, because Steven had 2 Collective Brutalities. If he only had the one,
Oh, yes.
it's certainly
God, I
correct.
missed it.
It's certainly correct to take the other one. All right. Looks like land for turn. Emery, the draw from Steven's side. And, I expect Collective Brutality to just drain that. Steven agrees. He gets his Oko back. And draw a card here.
Meddling
with
Mage.
Gray.
Oh,
Meddling Mage, pretty good.
yeah.
He does know about that Collective Brutality, so he gets to play Meddling Mage naming Collective Brutality this turn. But of course the Oko can always kind of put an end to this shenanigans as soon as he needs to.
Well, I was thinking just Meddling Mage and username Oko, and now Steven just has to use his other Collective Brutality.
Yeah. Of course, Gray currently cannot cast his Gaddock Teague. He does not have the requisite lands. He needs an Ancient Ziggurat or another land that can name
Kithkin Advisor, not human.
Yes, indeed. These sideboard cards are powerful, but they are often not humans, and sometimes you pay the price for that. Looks like 2 Mox Opals, an Urza, and a Thoughtsea, an Oko were the mills there. So Mox Opal, pretty relevant. I'm sure Steven will be happy to see that one on his side of the battlefield soon. I would also love to get confirmation on what this Meddling Mage named.
I would be shocked if it wasn't Oko.
It could easily be Collective Brutality. As a matter of fact, I think it should be. Also, is that a Dead of Winter in Steven's hand? I think it is.
God.
That's pretty scary.
Really? Yeah.
All right, looks
Oh.
like...
He's got 2 3/3s and a 1/1.
Yep. And that is 3 snow permanents on Steven's side of the battlefield.
It's only 2 right now.
Oh, you're right. It is only 2. That's pretty important. So Steven needs to find a land here. If he wants to get a snow
There's
land...
that Pluto Delta.
Yeah, so here's the interesting dynamic of...
If he wants to get a
He needs a
snow
snow land to be able to Dead of Winter away the board, but he needs a breeding pool to be able to cast Oko. So definitely going to have to take a think about what the play is here. I think I would just get the snow land and not be in a huge rush to cast my Oko. Looks like Steven agrees. Steven does need to Wrath away the board before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, this is...
If he lets it go another turn, all of these cards are going to grow out of this Dead of Winter range, and it's going to be a real problem. So there goes Gray's board.
Heartbroken.
-3/-3 to a lot of them. And Steven gets a Mishra's Bauble for his trouble with this Emery before it goes on its merry way. And, well, now we have a pretty clear board. Let's see what Gray wants to do. Here is that Gaddock Teague. And here is Noble Hierarch. Send it back. Of course, Steven still has the Collective Brutality, so not to be too scared. Draw 2 cards. Engineered Explosives, Arkham's Astrolabe are the 2. Engineered Explosives, of course, still offline currently. That Gaddock Teague does need to be dealt with before it will turn online.
And we got a Mystic Sanctuary draw from Steven.
Which can put Dead of Winter back on top.
Oh.
That's gross.
Outright
Yeah, there it
disgusting.
looks like Steven agrees. Dead of Winter right back on top. And here is Oko. The Arkham's Astrolabe allows Steven to cast it. And wow, that Arkham Astrolabe did work. drew
So much.
drew a Mystic Sanctuary that put a Dead of Winter back on top, cast his Oko, makes a food. Of course, the Gaddock Teeg can attack this Oko for 3, but still, what's Gray's real plan here? Looks
Steven
like he
has had a surprising amount of interaction this game.
Yeah, it looks
But
like
maybe
he
that's
has
why
a
he's playing
Sin
this
Collector
very-
in his hand.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Sin Collector, though, cannot hit the top of the library, which is, of course, where the problem is right now.
But that's fine. He can do like something else, and
Yeah, Militia Bugler doesn't seem bad. If you know you're getting Wrathed, Militia
Yeah.
Bugler is a good way to make your opponent Wrath you without losing cards. Looks like Gray agrees. He's going to cast this Militia Bugler, take a look at the top 4, another Gaddock Teeg among them.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's quite good. Will continue to shut off these engineered explosives, but of course Steven's going to find a window where he can
Play
Dead of
one.
Winter and then play EE for 2 before the Gaddock Teeg comes down. I would be surprised if Steven doesn't just fire off the Dead of Winter this turn and then play that engineered explosives for 2. Allows him to protect his Oko, continue making food, and he even might get a 3/3 at the end of it if he just pluses his Oko after the Dead of Winter. Okay.
Looks like he's doing
So-
exactly that.
That looks like that is Steven's choice. Steven will cast Engineered Explosive for 2, make his food into a 3/3, and then no attacks. So, also, word from our producer, it appears that Gatherer is down currently, and that is the site that we use to bring up card images. So, not to worry, we will be able to happily tell you any of the cards that you need to know, but I would not worry about it. Obviously, this is game 3, so hopefully you know what the cards do. But if you do not know what the cards do, please just go ahead and ask us in Twitch chat. Our producer on the chat end will be happy to inform you, and or we will be happy to just tell you ourselves. So sorry for the technical difficulties. Regardless, back to the match. Mantis Rider from Gray. Looks like it probably attacked that Oko.
There's another EE on 3.
Yeah, and then Steven took the opportunity to draw another Engineered Explosives and cast it for 3.
And then make that Mantis Rider lose flying and vigilance.
Indeed, so it's now just a normal 3/3 that will trade with Steven's food token. Of course, it does still have CMC 3. Here comes Sin Collector. Collective Brutality, Paradoxical Outcome. Paradoxical Outcome will be exiled. It definitely has to be. Gray cannot really afford to let Steven kind of refill. At this point, Gray is just hoping to grind through these couple things and hoping to draw better than his opponent, which is one of the things the Humans deck is well known at doing. It's well known for doing. It plays very few lands. A lot of its lands cycle with Horizon Canopy and some of the new cycle lands. And Humans is very good at just, this is a threat, you need to deal with it off the top. This is a threat, you need to deal with it off the top. And it looks like Gray is really kind of embracing that nature of the deck right now. Reflector Mage, the draw.
So I'm pretty, you're right, but I'm finding it hard for Gray to play threats that are unbeatable while his Oko exists.
Yeah, Oko is going to be a problem that needs to get dealt with sooner rather than later.
And there's the second Meddling Mage.
Indeed. So Gray electing not to cast his Reflector Mage this turn. Just go with the Meddling Mage, naming the Collective Brutality that he knows Steven has in his hand, I assume. And now, he just needs to beat Oko. Basically, if he can find a way to deal with Oko,
And Steve has no card stand.
and of course the 2 Engineered Explosives in play, he will be in the clear. But
That's,
I'm not going to lie, I'd rather be in Steven's seat.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, he named Urza. which
Meddling Mage naming Urza.
sounds great, but not, that's an Oko took away from not existing.
Indeed.
Looks like Steven's got land Amber in play, so just 2 lands.
Okay.
Alright, makes his Amber a 3/3.
Smocks Amber, make it into a 3/3. Pretty good choice there. Play my land, Will Steven. Send it back to Gray. Gray draws. Noble Hierarch.
Alright, it's not super what we wanted, but we get to go, he still has EE on 2 and 3. God, this is so backbreaking.
Yeah, the Engineered Explosives are really brutal. It's really hard to find a way, because, we just need to get at this Oko. And here's an attack with a 4/4. double block, of course. Gray kills the Mox Amber as opposed to the food token, which I think is wrong.
Yeah, me too.
I believe that you want to keep the Mox Amber in play because it cannot be rebought with Emery at a later point.
So now this is probably naming paradoxical outcome.
Yep, it is indeed naming paradoxical outcome. We have that confirmation.
But he just gets to blow this up and untap, and now we're like back to square zero.
Yeah, I mean, Steven doesn't probably feel any need to blow it up right now. I think he's going to be pretty content to just untap and wait until he draws a relevant spell, and then he can blow it up and continue from there.
Now, I don't know if that was an outcome or
I believe it was blue, but I didn't catch what it was.
I thought it was blue as well, so I think he just ripped an outcome off the top. But it also could have just been...
I think it might have been Psy.
Okay.
No, it's just a Mishra's Babble.
Okay.
All right, whatever. Another 3/3 food token here for Steven. Land off the top, an Ancient Ziggurat for Gray. Gray does have this Reflector Mage with which he can bounce a token that effectively kills it, so that's quite effective.
So now Steven's got a 3/3?
Yep, a single 3/3, but of course, any attacks that Gray makes still trade with this 3/3, which I guess is better than getting eaten by because of the Noble Hierarch. So Steven, of course, going to snap off the trade. I believe that was the Meddling Mage naming Urza, so now Urza is online. Right, and of course, here's the paradoxical outcome, not the Urza.
That doesn't matter. Though, I guess Steven doesn't have a lot of things to pick up.
He really doesn't. He has a couple engineered explosives and an astrolabe, and granted, the food tokens cannot be picked up to begin with, nor can planeswalkers, so it looks like make my astrolabe into a 3/3, will Steven. And I expect him to just send the turn back one more time. Of course, paradoxical outcome an instant, so no pressure to play it now. Okay, so we have Cavern of Souls, the draw from Gray.
And we have a Ziggurat.
And an Ancient Ziggurat still
and
in hand.
Gaddock.
Of course, yeah.
Well, that's
here is the Gaddock Teeg.
old.
Playing it into the engineered explosives. Steven, of course, says resolves. I think that this is probably going to be enough where Steven's going to be happy to just fire this one off, pick up his Astrolabe, his Oko, his engineered explosives on 3, and draw 2 cards and basically annihilate Gray's board. I think
Oko's at so much loyalty. I don't like picking it up.
I think I'm fine
now
with
it
it,
can take
but
some beat, so there's another EE.
So it looks like I missed what Steven drew there, unfortunately.
He drew an EE.
He drew engineered explosives again. Okay, so cannot cast that. I think given that Steven drew engineered explosives, I definitely want to just activate my engineered explosives on 2 and cast paradoxical outcome. So Steven, just gonna let Oko take 3 here. Here's Champion of the Parish. Say go. Looks like Steven still ever patient.
He's very good at that.
Just biding his time. Mox Amber, of course, going to play it. We're going to want to pick it up eventually. Make it into a 3/3. Will Steven. Send the turn back, just forcing Gray to commit more and more and more onto this board. Kitesail Freebooter. I wonder if that will be enough to force Steven's hand with the paradoxical outcome.
Probably has to.
So he can let it resolve first and then go ahead and get back whatever he takes with the engineered explosives.
That's so backbreaking to see by Gray.
Yeah, that's bad news for sure. You really hoping that Steven's hand was land. You would have felt like you had a chance if Steven's hand was land.
Yeah, but then it's
gas is gonna be tough. So of course Steven double blocks here, puts his Arcum's Astrolabe in the graveyard. Reflector Mage goes away too. Land off the top for Steven. I expect him to just play it and continue playing this nice patient game. Of course, at this point, Gray will be able to start attacking for 2 in the air every turn, and Steven, will of course be able to plus his Oko every turn for 2. So, not really getting anywhere fast. believe that is a Thalia off the top. At this stage in the game, not super relevant.
He's just pinning Oko.
And
Oh,
back.
it's an Urza.
All right. Let's see. We've got Urza off the top. Let's see if this is enough to make Steven want to do something. Here's the Urza.
After casting that kite sail, all Gray says is, "How am I supposed to beat this?" And Steven replies with, "You don't."
I love it. I love it. Some good table banter going on. All right. We've got a Seachrome Coast off the top. Steven still very, very patient. I'm tempted to say that if Steven just cracks this engineered explosives and untaps and casts Paradoxical Outcome, that he's going to win the game. And it looks like Steven finally agrees that he will win the game when he untaps. So Steven going to go ahead, make that judgment call, get that engineered explosives out there. Gray's like, oh, finally? Like...
I was just, like, hoping you forgot.
Yeah, like, well, I guess we don't have to worry about that anymore. But also, wow, I'm so dead, So here is the Paradoxical Outcome, still at end step. This is picking up, looks to be Oko and the 3 artifacts, and
Everything.
that's plenty for Gray.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
And,
that was surprising. I really thought humans had this.
Yeah, I mean, looks like Oko's real good.
Yeah, bet.
So, thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the stream. Be sure to give it a like, share, and follow. We are here every Monday and Friday, streaming Modern on Mondays, Standard on Fridays. And we really, really appreciate you guys coming in, checking out the stream. Helps us out a lot. With that, I'd love to thank the stream's final sponsor for the night, Advancify. Advancify is the best in the business for IT, web design, and data recovery. If you need anything along those lines, technology related, you're having tech problems, strongly recommend you check out Advancify. They're friends of ours. They do great work. I've seen them do great work, and I know that you will not be disappointed if you need anything like that. So thank you so much to Advancify for sponsoring the stream. You make it possible for us to be here. And with that, we're going to leave you guys with some Hot Damn Scandal, and I will be back on Friday for some more live Magic the Gathering coverage. We'll see you then.
And thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Indeed.